All right, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangout. My name is John Mueller. I am a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google in Switzerland. And part of what we do is talk with webmasters and publishers like the ones here in the Hangouts and the ones that submitted lots of questions already. As always, I'd like to give those of you who are kind of new to these Hangouts a chance to ask the first question. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to jump on in.
Since no one is doing it, I will just read one of my questions.
Okay.
Okay, so I read one from the thread. So, presuming you have a relatively new site, as in it doesn't have a lot of age, many links, shares exposed, or anything like that, but you start posting on it great content. Now the problem is that there might be people coming and copying your content. As in people with older sites, with sites with a lot more popularity, with a lot more users, eventually they get some user-generated content, as in on that content, since some people, some of their readers come and comment on said content. You always said that in such cases, Google may show one page or another, depending of various things. Many times it might show the page on the more popular site, especially since if it has extra content added, as in comments and things like that, because your intent is to offer the best content of the most trustworthy site for the people searching on Google. But is there any way for the original authors to protect his content, as in to tell Google in an automated way, obviously, that here's my original content, I'm the original author, so my content should be shown, not the content of someone that just copied from me. And I mean without filling the MCA complaints or going in trial or anything like that.
No, there's no automated way for you to say, this is my content and nobody else should be allowed to show it in search. So I think this is a really tricky situation sometimes. In practice, we have a bunch of algorithms that try to recognize the original source of the content and to boost that accordingly in the search results. So it's not just a matter of like, this is a popular site and it copied your content, but we do try to find the original source. But there is no automated way for you to say, this is my content, because the other people could just as well say, oh, this is my content too. And someone might be out there who has like a really fast system to recognize content on the web and picks it up first and shows it to Google and says, this is my content.
Well,
so this is not something...
Posted about the same time. Let's say you posted today, you crawl it, index it, recognize it as mine, and don't know, 6 months later, CNN comes and copies my content and doesn't give me credit. Will you show my page since I'm the original author, or will you show CNN's page since they are big and trustworthy and everything else?
I don't know. I think it depends a bit. But again, even in that situation, we do try to show the original source where we can. Sometimes it's not so easy. So maybe taking an extreme situation, if you're a photographer, you put a photo on your website. This is your photo. You put it on your website, but you put it on your website without much extra data on it. So as a title, it has like the photo number and a subtitle, maybe the information, the technical information that is from taking the photo, the exposure, the all of that stuff. But that's something that we could show in image search. We could say, well, this is the original source. We could recognize that as the original source. But if someone takes that photo and puts it, for example, in a forum thread, and there's suddenly a lot of extra content there, then if someone is searching for content that's more easily found in the forum thread, then we will probably show the forum thread as the page instead of the original page, just because it's a bit more relevant. So it's something where we do try to push the original content a little bit, but to some extent, sometimes other sources add so much more value that we think, well, for this specific query, we should be showing the other site instead. So I think that's something that as a content creator, you always have to kind of battle with online, in the sense that if you put content online, then it's easy for someone else to take, to rewrite, to write about as well. And sometimes the other sources will rank above your content as well. So I don't think there's an easy answer for that both makes sense for you as a content creator, but also for all of the users who are looking for maybe a little bit more context or maybe some different context. So for example, if someone takes a blog post of mine and copies a part of it onto their blog post and says, oh, this is terrible content, then that doesn't necessarily mean that my blog post should be ranking when someone is searching for their comments that they added to that snippet that they took out.
I see, and it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, John, related to that question, how much of a problem is it if you do a search for a quoted sentence? You take half a sentence from, and then go through the period and avoid any kind of things that will screw up the search, like punctuation or whatnot. You do a search for that verbatim, and how much of a problem is it if the original site that published that content originally doesn't show up in the verbatim search, and you have to click the omitted results to see them?
That's usually less of a problem. So in the sense that what happens there is we have both of those pages indexed, and it's just for the snippet, we're essentially trying to remove the duplicates. So it's not necessarily a problem that the site won't rank or that we penalize it or something like that, but it's just for the search results page, we think, well, this is exactly the same content that we already have in the search results. We don't need to list it multiple times.
Right, because the verbatim search and the site search and info : you guys kind of prefab that quite a bit, and it's not really a realistic determination of your ranking algorithms or anything like that.
Yeah, those are essentially artificial queries. So especially if you take like a whole sentence or a whole paragraph and you search for that in quotes, then that's something that from our point of view is kind of artificial. And it's not something where we spend a lot of time focusing our energy on to make sure that the ranking for something like that works perfectly.
Right. Well, I've got you. Can I ask you a quick question about this terrible thing called Penguin, this lovely thing called Penguin?
Sure.
There's a lot of confusion in the industry, so actually I think you can clear some things up. I think it'd be great, actually. The first thing, can we expect that all the Penguin flags from previous versions have been removed and now we're fully running on the real-time version?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Boom. Second question. You used to say that it was possible with previous versions of Penguin that you could 404 the target page and possibly get rid of the Penguin flag that way. Now I understand it's working as a label. Gary Ilyash mentioned it's working as a label on the link. So can you still 404 the target page to get rid of the Penguin label?
I think Penguin label is probably overstating it in the sense that we don't label individual links and saying, oh, this is Penguin bad or something like that. So Penguin is a general web spam algorithm, but in practice, what happens when you 404 the target page is that link falls out of our link graph. So anything that was associated with that link, which could be good or bad, will disappear from our link graph and won't take effect on your site on those pages.
Okay, great. So that sounds like you probably could be able to, if you can't delete those links or fix those links, you might be able to 404 the target page and be able to clean things up that way.
I mean, it depends a bit on which target page you're talking about. If this is the home page, then you probably don't want to do that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, don't go 404ing your index page, please, people. But if it's just some sub page or something.
Yeah.
May I have a follow-up on this?
Sure.
Okay, it's also a question I asked in thread, so but reading here. So let's presume that you have an old site, and you always was the good guy. And you always did everything the way Google liked it and recommended, always stating guidelines, always only pure white hat things, nothing black, nothing gray, nothing like that. And you have a history of 10, 20, 25 years of doing everything right. And there is a second site that also is 10 years old, that for 8 years did every dirty trick in their book and everything bad. And it was caught over and over again, and it was penalized. And in the last 2 years, they cleared up all the mess. They no longer they disavowed bad links. They removed all bad content. They removed doorway pages, things like that. And in the last 2 years, they were clear. Do you, as a good guy, site A, have any advantage over the bad guy that for 8 years was a code infractor? Or you were on the same page because in the last 2 years he was also a good guy? Because I mean, if there is no difference, there is a very high temptation for everyone. Okay, let's try this trick that will bring me traffic and money now. And if I get caught, okay, I fix it. 6 months, I don't have visitors, and I'm back.
Yeah,
in
I
Google
don't
favor.
know if most sites would be happy to say, oh, we will just like not show up in search for 6 months. So from that point of view, I would be careful. But there are two aspects there. On the one hand, we do look at the current status of your website when it comes to determining how relevant a page is in the search results. So if the current status of the website is good, then if you did something bad in the past, that's not necessarily bad. However, the current status of the website also includes everything that has been built up over the years. So if you're a good website, if you've had good content, then over the years you will have collected like a bunch of good links, a bunch of good signals that we can use and say, well, this is really a good website. We have like this big collection of links or this big collection of positive signals that are associated with the website. On the other hand, kind of a shady website that does something bad for like the last 8 years, and then the last year they try to clean everything up, they will have collected this big collection of junk as well. And by cleaning it up, they're essentially removing all of that junk. So instead of kind of gradually growing on that, they're starting almost, I guess, like fresh, you could say, after the 2 years when they're starting to clean up, where they only have this short time frame of the 2 years where they're actually collecting something useful for their website, actually collecting positive signals. So on the one hand, we do look at the current status, but the current status will be different for a website that has continuously been doing good things and providing really good content, providing good functionality for users, compared to someone who has been doing nothing useful for users over a long period of time.
But that's indirect, right? So no direct bonus for being a good guy for a long time.
Exactly. So that's definitely indirect, but that's not something I would underestimate, because if a website has been doing good things for the past 10 years continuously, then users will recognize that as well. And users will know this is a website I can trust, whereas this other website, they might look nice now, but users don't have any like longer term history with it. And they don't really understand, well, is this something that is good now and will be bad tomorrow? Or is this something that will kind of remain a stable, strong website over the long time? So it's on the one hand, we do look at the current status, and there is no bonus for having been good for the long period of time, but you do collect a lot of positive signals over that time, which is not something I would underestimate.
I see. And how about this new or old thing? If I have an old page, let's say from 10 years ago, but not on something that is news related or anything like that, let's say a paper on mechanical engineer or about physics or whatever. So the paper, it's still actual today. It's nothing that it was changed or things like that. But it is 10 years old. Google found it 10 years ago. Should I try to update some things here and there, add some things here and there to make it fresh for Google? Or Google is able to say, okay, in this field things don't change so much, they don't need something really new, so I can bring up a paper from 10 years ago when people search for something related? Or do you give boost bonuses to newer pages?
We don't have an explicit bonus for newer pages, but sometimes we can tell people are looking for something newer. So if it looks like something, I don't know, maybe this is like a 10-year-old paper on physics, and this is a topic nobody has been talking about, but suddenly it goes into the news because someone else makes a new discovery that's related to it, then this 10-year-old paper on physics might not be the most relevant results for someone who's searching for that topic because they want to know about these new changes. So if there's something new that you want to provide additionally on your website or within that paper, then that would be something that would help us to understand, oh, this is actually a new piece of content that is relevant for these new people who are searching for this information. But on its own, having a 10-year-old paper that is relevant, that has remained relevant, is perfectly fine. It's not something that I would artificially like always tweak some words every week.
No, not really tweaking. I mean, don't know, once per year add an addendum.
Sure. I mean, that's something. Yeah, I mean, that's something that makes sense for users. So that's, if it makes sense for the users, then I would go ahead and do that because search will reflect that as well.
So that would be better instead of leaving the page untouched for years.
I don't know if it's better or not.
If it makes sense, I mean, not just tweaking for the sake of tweaking.
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple strategies that you could employ there. On the one hand, you could edit the existing content. On the other hand, you could just say, well, I will make a new blog post that refers to my reference material, but provides some additional context.
But there is no such thing as losing an age bonus or something like that. So I modified the page, so it's no longer sees on all page. So I don't know how much we can trust it because it's ever new.
No, I don't think that would be a problem.
Okay, thank you a lot. I will shut up till the end.
All right.
Let others ask you.
Okay, I'll run through the questions that were submitted and try to save some time towards the end as well, so that any additional questions that might come up, feel free to jump on in then. From a site quality point of view, is it better to have only small quantity of the best pages in Google Index that are receiving traffic? Will this provide a slight increase for my Panda score? So in general, I would kind of maybe bracket out the Panda score part. But in general, this is something where you have to think about your website, about your users. I wouldn't artificially remove content just because you think it's not the best content on your website, but maybe it makes sense to improve some of the content, especially if you know that it's really low quality content. So it's not something where I would say you should take a 1,000-page website and reduce it to 10 pages, and then you will rank better, because if you reduce it to 10 pages, you'll have a lot less content. We might think those 10 pages are really good and they are really relevant, but if you don't have that content on those pages, then we don't know what to do with them. So instead of just blindly deleting content, think about where this content makes sense. Is this good content overall? Is this something that maybe was just created as filler over the years? And kind of respond to that, and not worry so much about a Panda score, about a site-wide quality score, but think about how does this content make sense for users going to my website. And does video reviews to our product pages, are they considered as rich content? What about non-uniqueness? We want to add reviews from other websites like YouTube, but will it help our pages to rank or hinder ranking due to non-unique content? So in general, if you have videos, if you have any kind of additional content that you can refer to from your pages, I think overall that's a good thing. And especially if this is something where you can tell that users are responding to it, they're reacting to it, they're taking advantage of that additional content that you have there. Whether or not this is content that you've generated yourself or that you're just referring to from your website, that's usually less of an issue. But of course, if this is something unique to your website, then I would highlight that as well on your website. So with regards to reviews, I would go ahead and link to those other reviews, embed them on your content. I think that generally helps to improve the quality of these pages if it's really something that users refer to. Yes.
Just a comment on that. We had, I don't know if you remember, but we have maybe 70 to 100 videos on our UK site where I'd mentioned to you before that they just weren't being indexed, and you said it might be because they're in the left-hand side of the page or right-hand side of the page where we see additional content. Over the Penguin fortnight, whatever you want to call it, suddenly we went from having 5 videos shown to having 75 videos shown. And I don't know if there was anything in those algorithms that changed in that regard, but I just thought it was a coincidence that, because they shouldn't be content related, I'm guessing more link related Penguins. So I don't know why that would start showing up so much better.
I don't know. I mean, it's sometimes hard to say because we do make changes in search all the time. And sometimes these things roll out together and then it looks like, oh, with this Penguin update that people were talking about, suddenly this other change happened, they must be related. And a lot of times they're just not related. And especially, I don't know, towards the end of the quarter is usually a time where I see a lot of Google teams say, oh, we always wanted to launch this, so therefore we'll try to launch it at least by the end of the quarter so that we can say we completed it this quarter. And you'll see a lot of different things launching during a time like that. So my guess is that this is unrelated to the web spam algorithm update, because video search is quite independent of the rest of web search.
Right, and there's never been an issue in the UK with any penalties or anything, so there should be nothing that is released from us because we've never had anything. Just thought it was coincidental.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I don't know.
It didn't go, you know, from 5 to 10 to 20 to, it just literally jumped up to all of the videos we have being indexed within 48 hours.
But that's a good thing. So
yeah.
I don't know. We've always been trying to figure out how best to encourage people to make videos. So I'll try to keep an eye out on that to see if something happened there.
You should make a video to help people make videos.
Yeah. Okay, we have another Penguin question. Given that Penguin has now been released, could we see further gains as it works its way through all the algorithms, or would we already have seen all the recovery that we get from it by now? As far as I know, it's fully rolled out. So this is not something where you would continue to see subtle changes based on this specific update. But since it's a more real-time algorithm, it's something that will respond a little bit faster to changes that you make on your website with regards to web spam, with regards to maybe problematic links that are on your site. So if you continue cleaning things up, or as your website continues to grow and gets more references from other people, then that's something that will have a positive effect there as well. So it's not the case that your website is now ranking at this position and getting this much traffic and will just stay there. You will see kind of the normal organic changes anyway.
But presumably also other sites that were affected by Penguin are now suddenly starting to get visitors. And if those sites link to your site or those have visitors, you will still over time see some knock-on effects of being other people being released from issues. That's true, yeah. But this, I don't know, I'd call this more like the normal organic changes on the web as things get picked up and passed on and forwarded.
If I download a video from YouTube, enhance it, add some bits and value to it, and then put it on my channel as a new video, would Google see that as a new video, which I would get the benefit from, or would it always be that the original source got the SEO benefit from it? So I guess, first of all, it's probably bad form to just download a video from YouTube and tweak it and then put it on your own channel and call it your own video. I don't know what how like the people that made the original video would feel about that. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. With regards to the SEO benefit from any video that you put on your website, that is something that we try to take into account. But it's mostly with regards to understanding that there's a video on this page, and maybe we should show this page in video search and provide it as a landing page when someone is searching for video. So that's something that could be just as relevant if you take any other video from YouTube and place it on your website and have a lot of additional context on your website about content that's related to this video, for example. So it's definitely not the case that you need to artificially tweak a video and put it on your own YouTube channel so that we pick it up and say, oh, there's a video on here, we should pick that up for video search. You mentioned in your last Hangout that you sometimes see e-commerce sites with a lot of generalized content on their category pages, which can be deemed low quality or spammy, and that Google sometimes discounts this content. Unfortunately, our website has some of this, so would you suggest getting rid of all of the content on a category by category basis and see if the rankings positively change before deciding to put it back? Or should you really be looking at removing all the general stuff from it and just keeping it short and to the point of what a user would expect to read on a particular page? And does Google actually need content on pages to rank well? So the last one is definitely the case. We do need content on pages to understand what these pages are about. Sometimes we can guess at what the content is there. So if a page is blocked by robots text, then obviously we have no idea what is actually on this page, but we will have to infer to it based on things like links to those pages and anchor text and context of those links, all of that. But obviously, it's a lot easier for us if there is actually content on these pages that we can pick up on. When it comes to category pages, like you mentioned here, if you have an e-commerce site, then usually we will have a lot of information already on these pages. So the individual product listings will be there. You'll have navigation. You'll have additional context within your website where you say, well, this category is a subcategory of this group here. And all of that gives us a lot of information, a lot of context already. So for pages like that, usually those big blocks of text that some e-commerce sites have on the bottom of their pages aren't really that necessary. So what I would do here, as with pretty much any bigger change on a website, is test it. Take a couple of categories on your website, remove that chunk of text on the bottom of those pages, and see if Google still has enough context to understand what this page is about. If you have individual product listings on that page, then we should be able to figure out what this page is about and to continue showing it in search appropriately. But this is something that is a bit scary if you just say, well, I will just go through my website and delete half of the content on there because John says this additional text chunk here is unnecessary, because that can be a pretty strong change. And sometimes Google does need a little bit more information, or maybe you need to kind of refine how you actually provide that information on your pages. And that's something that you can definitely test. You can test that both for the search engines and for users, in the sense that you can see how users respond to these changes on your pages. Maybe you could test with users to see if it makes sense to have like an introductory paragraph or a couple sentences on top of the category page to better explain what this page is about. But these are all things that you can try out on your website, and usually we will respond to changes that you make with the content fairly quickly, in the sense that you'll be able to test this maybe after a couple of weeks and already see is this working positively? Is this working negatively? Do I need to tweak this a little bit? Which other variations could I try out? Like, where else could I maybe place this additional content that I have that would make sense for Google, where users would be able to find it when they're looking for that specifically? So on the one hand, like I said, we do need some content on pages, but for most e-commerce sites or most normal websites, I would say we can pull that out without you providing this big chunk of text on the bottom of the pages. Our website is a car rental business, and we have a page which answers customers' general queries. For example, pickup times, dropping off, insurance, can I get from here to there? The web page is easily visible and accessible from the main navigation, but our customers still always ask the same questions. So we wonder, why are they not reading it yet? If we link to this page from our vehicle pages, is that better than repeating some of the content on the vehicle pages? If we did the later, would Google think we're duplicating things, which would cause overall harm? So first of all, duplicating things like that would be unproblematic from our point of view. What happens in a case like that, where we see individual chunks of text that are duplicated across your website, is we will index those pages normally. And if someone is searching for something explicitly in that chunk of text in the search results, then we will pick one of these pages and try to show that. We will try to recognize that this chunk of text is actually the same across a number of pages, so we won't list all of those pages in the search results when someone is searching specifically for that. On the other hand, if someone is searching for one of those vehicle pages in general, like a specific car type, a specific rental type setup, then that's something where we would just show that page. We wouldn't really care about, well, this chunk of text here on the bottom is duplicated across multiple pages. From our point of view, that's just the way you're providing your content and not necessarily something that I'd really worry about there. With regards to making sure that people actually read your information rather than just looking at it, I don't really have any great advice there. I think that's a problem that a lot of companies have that provide information on the internet. It's the same thing that we run into as well. So if you have any magic trick to make it so that people actually read your information, then please get back to me and let me know as well. How regularly should you look to freshen up historic blog content? As I think you said, over time, its value will drop. This goes into the question that Bogdan asked at the beginning, like, if you have older content, should you be updating it all the time? And from my point of view, its value doesn't drop over time, but it's something where you can think about, does it make sense to provide some additional new context to this information? Does it make sense to provide maybe new pages or new blog posts that are talking about this reference material that I have on my site? Sometimes you can add value like that and provide different ways for people to actually reach your reference content. So when I guess like looking at reference content is a little bit different than looking at a blog where you just have random blog posts. So in a case like that, if you have just random blog posts, then it's always a question of, should I be cleaning this up? Should I be taking the old irrelevant things down? Should I just be refreshing them? Should I just be adding new content? And that's more of a marketing question, a process question on your side, rather than something where I would say from an SEO point of view, it's important that you do it like this. So sometimes it makes sense to clean things out, to have less content that you need to maintain. It makes the remaining content a little bit more valuable. Sometimes it makes sense to keep these older pieces of content, even if you're only seeing a visitor maybe once a month or once every couple of months to that content, because it's part of your history. It's part of what happened for you to kind of reach the state that you're in now. I think we looked at this one here, where we were thinking of displaying different banners on different days of the week on our store, and these banners link to different sections of our site, promoting products. So for example, we may have a special banner for quiet days, etc. How would Google see that if the homepage is always linking to different things all the time? Can that have a negative effect for us if it's changing regularly? That's perfectly fine. That's not something that I think Google would really worry about too much. I guess a positive effect of doing something like this is that we recognize that these pieces of content that you're linking to are actually pretty relevant because you're linking to them from your homepage. So over time, this is something that will spread a bit of value to those individual pages. And I think in general, that's a good idea to do. Users will, of course, see these banners and links fairly quickly if they're visible on your pages. I just make sure that you're not doing this in a way that is essentially an interstitial, because that's something that we don't find that useful, and that can make it a lot harder for us to actually index the content. Because if we render the page and see a full interstitial over the content, then we might think that the rest of the content there is actually not so relevant, and then focus just on the interstitial. But if this is a banner on top of your content and the rest of your content is still visible, then that seems like a good thing to do. Can a regular query become navigational over time and vice versa based on user behavior? Yes, theoretically that could happen. So navigational for us essentially means that this web page or this website is what the user is looking for. And this is something that can happen over time. That is something that our systems try to recognize over time. It's, I think, a fairly natural progression. Like, for example, if you start a new business and you really focus hard on making this brand really popular and really well known, and this brand happens to be maybe two fairly common words, then over time we will see that these two words are not just two words, but rather they refer to this specific website and this specific brand. And for us, that will kind of help us to understand, well, actually, this query, when done like this, means the user actually wants to go to this web page. So if someone is searching for, I don't know, I can't think of any common brand with two common words at the moment.
Experience days?
Experience days, exactly. So those are two individual words. But over time, we've probably learned that people actually want to go to this website. And that means for us, our systems have learned over time that this is actually a pretty navigational query that should lead the user directly to that website. We sell toys. If you incorporate manufacturer's instructions, their safety guides, and other material on your product pages, which our customers can download, given that this is not our original material, does Google give no weight whatsoever to the fact that you're trying to improve the quality of the page, or will Google acknowledge what you're doing? We want to improve these pages, but rewriting all of the instructions, etc., can be a waste of time. What are your thoughts? So I guess that usually when I look at websites and they have the manufacturer's instructions, they'll link to a PDF. That's kind of the original manufacturer's PDF, something like that. And in a case like that, that PDF will probably be one-to-one reused on multiple sites, maybe even on the manufacturer's site directly. And in a case like that, we will try to figure out, is this PDF unique? And if not, under which URL should we index it? So what is the canonical URL for this piece of content? And in practice, what probably happens most of the time is that we take maybe the manufacturer's site and say, well, for this specific PDF, we will send people to this manufacturer's site because that's where it's originally from. Maybe that's the most common place where it's actually used. So probably we will send people to the manufacturer's site for that. On the other hand, if you have instructions that you can include on your web pages, on the product pages, then that's something that can be perfectly fine. That's not something that we would say, well, this is duplicated, therefore we will only send people to the manufacturer's homepage. Because if someone is searching for something general around that topic and includes some information like showing that they're searching for these instructions, then we'll probably send them to your website or any website that's most relevant for that specific query. What I would just probably try to shy away from is just only having this copied content for your product pages. So if you sell any product, anything that you're selling online, try to make sure that your web page, your website adds some additional value that's not found on other sites, that's not found on the original manufacturer site. That could be something where you have some unique insights on. It could be that you have unique reviews from your customers that are there. It could even be that you just have a good collection of related content that really matches what this specific product is, but also provides value. Or it could even be that you're just like the local company that's selling this specific product. And if someone is searching for something local, then maybe your website is the right place to go. But you really want to shy away from the situation where you're just taking all of this content from other sources and putting it on your website and not providing anything unique and valuable on your own. Let's see. What's the best practice if we use a CDN and the pages from it are also indexed? Are they counted as duplicate content, and can our website be penalized for this? We're using CloudFront. So first of all, we don't penalize websites for duplicate content like this. From our point of view, this is a technical issue that we need to figure out and handle ideally on our side to show the user these pages or the right pages for their queries. So there's no penalty for duplicate content like this. You don't have to fear that your website will be demoted if Google's algorithms spot duplicate content on your CDN and on your original website. That's definitely not the case. The only case where we do have a kind of penalty on duplicate content is if a website is essentially just aggregating content from lots of other different sources and not providing any value at all. Then from our point of view, that looks like something that we probably don't want to spend a lot of time on indexing because we already have all of that content. But in a case like this, where it's your content and you have two websites that are showing the same content, what will happen is that we will crawl an index or try to index both of these pages. We will try to recognize that these are actually identical copies of each other. And we'll try to pick one of these for indexing or one of these to show in the search results when someone is searching for this content. So what might happen is if you do a site query that you see this content because you're explicitly looking for those URLs, then we say, well, we know these URLs exist, and here's the content that exists there. But if you search for normal queries that users would use to lead to your content, then you probably would just find one of these pages ranking. And from our point of view, that's fine. That's not something that you need to manually tweak and change. But if you have really strong preferences with regards to which URL you want to have ranking, then you can use something like a rel canonical to let us know about that. So with the rel canonical, what will happen is we'll see these pages are duplicate, and we'll say, well, the webmaster really wants this URL to be shown, so we'll try to show this URL in the search results. If without the rel canonical, we'll just see these pages are duplicate and kind of guess from our side and say, well, maybe this is the URL we should show to users, and we'll pick that one. So it doesn't necessarily change the ranking, but it does change which URL that we'd show there. So it sounds like you have a preference with regards to which URL you want to have shown. So in that case, I would work with the rel canonical and let us know about your preference. I heard in a few of your past videos that Google sets a crawl limit not per site, but per server. I'd like to ask what per server means. Like if you have a physical server and there are 4 VPS on there, or if you have like one IP address with a lot of servers behind it. Like what's up with that? So this is a good question. Thank you. So from our point of view, we try to figure out what the right grouping is there. And we generally try to do that maybe on per IP address or on per server basis, depending on what we can pick up there. But it's not the case that we have this like set in stone and say, oh, each IP address has a unique kind of like crawl limit that we have set there. Sometimes it makes sense to combine things. Sometimes it makes sense to spread things out a little bit. So for example, if you have a CDN, then you might have one IP address that has a lot of different websites on there. But we shouldn't be like slowing down crawling of that IP address just because of all of this content on there. We should actually be splitting this up more on the per website basis. So this is something that our systems regularly try to relearn and figure out where is essentially the right grouping that we should use to determine how much we should crawl from this website, this group of websites, this server. Maybe sometimes there are even multiple IP addresses on the same server that we should treat as one server. So that's not something that's set in stone from our point of view. So it's kind of hard, I guess, from a webmaster point of view to understand what you need to do with that. In practice, for most sites, we can crawl more than enough. It's fairly rare that we have sites where we're actually really limited. So for the most part, if users are able to access your site in a speedy way, if your server is not getting bogged down when it's being crawled and when users are accessing at the same time, then probably we can crawl enough of your website to actually make all of that work. If you're seeing that the crawling is a lot slower than you think your server is able to handle, or if you see that the crawling is a lot higher than you think your server is able to handle, and you think this is completely unnecessary, that Google is looking at my page several times a day, then there's a form that you can use to contact the Googlebot team. It's linked from our Help Center on the crawl rate setting page. So I think on the bottom of that Help Center page, there's a link to a contact form where you can give us some information about what kind of crawling you're seeing and what you would like to have instead. One thing to keep in mind is that crawling doesn't necessarily imply ranking. So you don't artificially need to increase the amount of crawling that we do on your website. That doesn't necessarily mean that we will rank more. On the other hand, if you're a news website and you constantly put out new content and we're not keeping up with crawling it, then obviously that new content can't be crawled. It can't be indexed at all. And we wouldn't be able to show that in search. But for normal websites, you don't artificially need to keep pushing Googlebot back and saying, hey, you should recrawl my homepage 100 times a day, even though I've only changed it once in the past month. That's kind of something that you don't need to artificially tweak. All right, we have a few minutes left. Are there any more questions on your mind, things that we should be discussing?
Yeah, I had one, John.
OK.
Mine was on the forum about age gating. And our website, we incurred some indexing problems. And through our investigations, we think it might be having to do with the fact that we have an age gate, a page that asks a user's age. Mm-hmm. And we're wondering, since through our investigations, we saw that it looks like there's no such thing as white hat cloaking, and we are allowing Googlebot to look at the page and parse it while not letting users do that. And we think that might have had something to do with it, but I can't find anywhere on like a recommendation that we should do in terms of allowing parsing, but also protecting content from those that might not shouldn't see it.
I'd love to have your URL if you can send that to me so that I can take a look at that. I've been working on a document with some recommendations with regards to legal interstitials, essentially. So that would be an age gate, for example, or maybe something like a country picker or something like that. to make sure that we can actually crawl through those and index the relevant content behind that, and still let you show that type of interstitial. So I'd love to take a look at your site just to make sure that there's nothing crazy happening there. But at the same time, I hope we can get these recommendations out as well, so that you're sure that you're doing it in the right way. Because for the most part, what I see sites doing works more or less. It's not something where I see sites have any problems with setting up these type of interstitials, but we don't have any official guidelines on what specifically you need to be doing, and I think that would be useful for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How should I send that to you?
You can just send me a note on Google+, and I can pick that up from there. So I don't know if I'll have anything specific to get back to you on that, but I just love to make sure that we have one example more to look at.
Thank you.
Hey, John, I'd like to go back to something that Bogdan said, actually. He raised a really good point earlier in the Hangout.
Okay.
He talked about the white hat site, the good site shining on the hill. That's been doing everything right, but even those kinds of sites are going to potentially incur, the occasional penguiny or spammy looking link, just by accident or whatever, past SEO or whatever. And so the question kind of comes up: at what point should they start worrying about, in regards to Penguin real time? At what point should they start worrying about those spammy backlinks and disavowing them or deleting them? Or because now the story is that if you have too many Penguin real-time links, that at some point the manual team is going to get triggered to take a look. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, this is actually kind of a problem because a lot of webmasters don't even know what the disavow tool is. Never mind, what links to put in there. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we explicitly put the disavow tool in a kind of a separate place. So it's not linked directly from Search Console, for example, because for the most part, normal webmasters don't really need to do anything with that. We take a look at their site overall, and we look at all of the signals that we kind of collect over time, and we try to understand, is there something really problematic happening here, or is this like this weird edge case or this random spammer script that ran crazy and decided to link to a bunch of normal sites as well, those kind of situations. So for the most part, normal businesses, normal websites that haven't been doing anything crazy with regards to web spam, with regards to unnatural link building over time, they don't need to worry about this. So that's not something where I'd say you kind of like as a best practice, like all small businesses should be looking at their links and kind of double checking each one of them to make sure that there's nothing bad there. For the most part, we figure this out automatically. Also with the new Penguin algorithm, it's less of a case that we look at the individual links and say, oh, we will kind of demote this website for this individual link here. It's really more of the case that we say, oh, well, this individual link here looks kind of iffy, so we will just ignore it, which I think makes a lot more sense and helps a lot of these smaller websites that don't really know what they're doing and that for the most part are just doing normal marketing and doing normal things on the web. For those, it's really not something they really need to worry about. On the other hand, if you are aware of this, I don't know, a bigger thing that maybe a previous SEO did or something like that, then that's something I would still look into and think about, like, does it make sense to clean this up and see if you could clean that up.
So the spamminess of the target site or the spamminess or the over-optimization maybe of the target page can play a relevance in Penguin real time?
Well, Penguin is generally a web spam algorithm, so we take into account a number of things that could be involved around web spam. So I wouldn't necessarily say the spamminess of the target page is what's relevant there, but we try to look at the bigger picture. When we see a website that has a lot of normal links, and there are a handful of some that are in there which are problematic, then we'll just say, well, like overall, this is a good picture, and we think we should treat this as a good website, like that.
Great. Thanks, John. Thanks a lot.
So very
And by the
short
way,
one.
I just want to mention, sorry, Bogdan, I just want to mention, I commend you guys for devaluing the links as opposed to demoting. I think that's to be commended, a very good thing.
Thanks.
Okay, very short one, John. It's an yes or no answer pretty much. I'm just launching a new site now, and I want to make sure I'm not doing something bad. It's okay both with www or non-www, right? So no recommended way to do it.
Yes.
So I should do it just the way it makes sense for me.
Yes.
And
But maybe you could put it on
HTTPS.
HTTPS. Yes.
HTTPS. Okay. So and in Google Webmaster Tool, should I add all four? Non-www, HTTPS, or if I'm starting new and I don't have previous links, I can just add HTTPS www and don't worry
Sure.
about JavaScript.
Yeah, definitely. I would just add one. If it's a new website, then that's where the data will be. That's the one that you need. I think it's a good practice to have all of the versions verified there, just so that you're sure that you get any notifications of anything that breaks in between. But it adds clutter to the UI and makes it harder to use. If you just want to add one, I think that's perfectly fine as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, one last question. Who's up for it?
I have an interesting question that has nothing to do with Penguin.
Okay, even better.
Surprising.
Even better. So in Search Console, the fetch and render tool, you get a screen that shows both what Googlebot sees on the left and what Chrome supposedly sees on the right. I've also heard you say that Googlebot is essentially a stripped down version of Chrome. If that's the case, then why aren't those two screens the same? If Chrome can see it, why can't Googlebot see it?
The primary reason we have both of those there is that roboted embedded content does play a role. So if something is blocked by robots text, then a normal user will still see that, but Googlebot won't be able to see that. So that's kind of the place where most of these differences come from. For example, it used to be that lots of people would just robot their CSS and JavaScript files by default. And if those files are blocked by robots text, then obviously the view that Googlebot has of the page will be very different than from what the user sees. So that's kind of why we put those two side by side. Sometimes they're just like technical quirks as well, where maybe something times out on the server, some embedded file or something like that. But for the most part, if there's no roboted content, then these pages should be pretty much equivalent.
Cool. Thanks, John.
All right. So with that, let's take a break here. I'll set up the next Hangouts as well. I see there's still a bunch of questions that are left. So if there's something on your mind that we haven't gotten to that you really need to have answered, feel free to copy that to the next Hangout or bring that to the Webmaster Help Forum if you want. In the Webmaster Help Forum, we're occasionally there, but for the most part, there are peer webmasters who have a lot of experience that might be able to help out as well. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you all for all of the questions, and I wish you all a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, John.
Bye, everyone.